Good morning, everyone. We're doing another episode of the changed the name, so now it's Ezekiel's Art Podcast now. That's the one that won out in the polls, so we're going to stick with that for a while. And I have Stevie McGuire with me today.
Oh,
How's it going?
good, good. How are you?
Doing pretty good. So why don't you introduce yourself?
My name is Stevie McGuire. I'm not originally from Spokane, but I've lived here the majority of the last 23 years. Um, and yeah, I'm an artist, I'm a hypnotherapist, I'm an astrologer, I'm a mom.
So
Yeah,
my first question is going to be, I want to dive right into the hypnotherapy part because I've talked to a lot of artists, but never an artist that's also a hypnotherapist.
yeah,
So
awesome.
how did you get into hypnotherapy?
It's kind of a cool story. I and my life is lots of crooked roads up to this point. We'll start at this one little point. It was about 2 years ago. Um, I just kind of didn't really know what to do. I've always been fascinated by like psychology and human behavior and the subconscious mind and why we do the things we do and all that kind of stuff. And I got an astrology reading from an astrologer that is fairly well known and just a really awesome human being. Um, and we looked at our chart, or we looked at my chart, and uh, he pointed out, there's lots of artistry and creative stuff in there. There's definitely that's a side of me, but the other side of me is definitely the therapist side and the deep diving into the subconscious mind side. Um, and then shortly after that, I found a newspaper clipping from the Spokesman Review from 1974, 1976 maybe. And it was a clipping of my grandmother and my uncle. And it turns out my grandma was a hypnotherapist in Spokane, and she actually owned like 3 hypnotherapy clinics, co-owned them. And my uncle helped her manage them. And I didn't live in Spokane at that time, and I mean, I wasn't born then.
Hmm.
But I didn't live in Spokane until after she passed away, and I was never close to her. And the only thing my dad ever said was that, oh, she makes cassette tapes to help people quit smoking in their sleep. Like that was the extent of what I knew about what my grandma did. Um, and so I found this newspaper clipping, and I was like, holy shit, like that's what she did. And in the astrology reading, he had mentioned hypnotherapy specifically, and it just like clicked like that instantly. And so I, so started doing research about the requirements in Washington and schools and stuff. And I reached out to a lady locally who had a hypnotherapy institute, and she ran out of her house. And since COVID, it was all over Zoom. And so I reached out to her and I talked to her, and asked her lots of questions. And at the end, I said, hey, did you by chance know Marvel McGuire? Because that was my grandma's name. And she goes, oh my gosh, I never met her, but when she retired, she sent me all of her clients. She referred every single client she had to me. She's like, and I had just moved to Spokane and I needed clients. And so yeah, it was just this full circle kind of crazy thing. So I studied and went to school and got certified. And the woman's amazing. It's the Hypnotherapy Institute of Spokane, and her name is Judy Ward. She's just fantastic. And so yeah, I got my certification and everything. I totally understand why my grandma sent her all of her clients. So yeah, so that's, I don't know if it was just in my genes or what, but it feels very meant to be.
Right, definitely. I mean, too many coincidences at once.
Right, yeah.
So,
I don't believe in
how
those.
does, yeah, I feel that. How does hypnotherapy like integrate with your art? Is there a kind of like a relationship between those two things?
I think there's a, not no not so much necessarily for other like hypnotherapy for other people like how it, but for me it's all the subconscious mind. Like my art comes from my subconscious. Hypnotherapy deals directly with the subconscious. Yeah, it's just all in that world. And the astrologer in me wants to point out that it's because I'm a Pisces, and the archetype for Pisces is that connection with the divine, that being able to live with one foot in the ether and one foot in reality, or one foot in the subconscious all the time. Pisces actually rules the subconscious and dreams in astrology. And so, yeah, to me, it's just like little puzzle pieces that all fit together perfectly that made me, and then I make the art and I do the hypnotherapy, and yeah, astrology.
That's awesome.
I understand why.
So what would you consider your style of art? Because I looked at it and it seems very eclectic, and I was having a hard time putting a finger on it when I was making the promo post.
Yeah, me too. People have asked me the same thing, and I'm like, I don't know. I mean, and here's the I wish I could find it. I did have it written down. Somebody asked me to write a blurb, and I wrote a really good one. I can't remember what it was now. But I think that the reason it's hard for me to nail down too is that there's a couple of pieces that I planned out ahead of time, but most of my pieces, and the way it works is I either pick a color, or I have like some very vague starting point, of like a shape or a color, or I just start throwing paint on a canvas and moving, literally doing the crappiest abstract work you can imagine. And I let it dry, and then I'm like, well, what does that kind of look like? And then, but I still don't get the vision of the painting. It's like it gives me one step at a time. Like I see it, and I'm like, ooh, that should be blue, and it should be like this. And then I have to stare at it for a long time. And it's like a little slot machine in my head, just like running through things until something goes ding, that's it. And it's like I found the puzzle piece, and then it goes in, and then I sit and wait for the next piece. And in the meantime, I just, my OCD just works out little details. But yeah, I don't know. I think surrealism is one of the words that gets thrown around with it. And then there's lots of nature and space themes. My daughter pointed out that there is an eyeball or a star, or there's an eyeball or a star in every one of my paintings. There's eyes in all of it almost. So that's a theme.
I've been told that I have a similar thing where like there's just an eye in pretty much in almost every piece of work that I do. It's just, I don't know, I'm obsessed with eyes.
Yeah.
They're cool.
They're amazing. They're unique.
So I noticed that you use like different things. Is it for your art, like what kind of mediums do you work in? Because I'm looking at some of yours behind you right now.
Excuse me. So I've always just worked with acrylics. I mean, I would love to work with oils. It's just a lot more of a setup and a hassle and drying process. And I seem to do fine with acrylics, so I just stick to those. I've done a little bit with watercolors, some like smaller. I like to do the little tiny 3x5 or like 2x3 cards for the watercolors. But then I found this really cool book about the moon, and it just had lots of cool images in it. And I was like, I want to make a collage. And that's kind of where the collage thing started. And that's how you got that one and this print out of that one. Yeah. In fact, everything in that collage came from that one book. And then, yeah, that one was on a drum head. I worked as a stagehand over in Seattle for a year or so. And somebody, I guess stagehands are always giving something to other stagehands, like, oh, I got this at this show from this artist that you love. Here you go. And so somebody brought me a drum head left over from a show, and not to sound like a complete asshole, but I can't remember who gave it to me, what show it was from, or anything, because my memory just sucks, right? And so I'm like, well, I'm not going to get rid of this, but it's a perfectly good canvas. So that's where that collage came from. It's on a drum head from a famous band, but I can't.
You can't remember.
So, yeah.
So when did you start getting serious about your art? Because I know a lot of artists usually, when they start art, that's but as a child. But when did it click with you, like, this is what I want to get into?
It clicked when probably when I moved back to Spokane. I mean, the year before, so I moved to Spokane in like June of 2020, like right after COVID you know, because I was working as a stagehand in Seattle, and well, we didn't need stagehands anymore. But the year prior to moving over here, I had been painting, and like I painted in high school, you know, as kids, like you said, you know, most artists do, and then I just didn't really paint at all for a lot of years. I would like bust out one random painting like as a gift for somebody, and then that would be it for like 5 years or something. But then I painted this one. It's called Othilla. It's the one that's got the it's like the big swan with the ocean and the cliffs, and instead of a face, it's got like a doorway with an eye. And I painted that, and it was one of those moments where when it's done, I stood back and I was like, oh, it's actually kind of decent. Like, maybe I should do this more often. And so the next year I just painted when I could. And once I had like 4 or 5 paintings together, so I was working, you know, full time. And then, yeah, COVID hit, and I moved over here, and I just decided that I would try and paint more and sell prints. And I don't know, I had no idea what I was doing. I had never tried to sell my art before. So yeah, what year is it? It's 2023 now. So it's we'll call it 3 years that I've been seriously trying to, yeah, professionally be an artist.
So, did you always do kind of the more surrealistic approach to painting, or did you paint from like references and learn everything first and then go into the kind of more subconscious, let it flow?
I'm a landscape artist. I'm pretty sure that's what, and that's the other common theme in all of my paintings almost, is that you're looking at a landscape usually. This collage is an exception, and even then it's still kind of, and yeah, not, I don't know, but that's where I've always end up at is I painting a landscape or a horizon or a sky or mountains or something, and then I look at it and I'm like, well, that's boring. And so that's when I start putting weird shit in it, or you know what I mean, or it's once I think it was when I did this that swan on the ocean and made it weird, because really, I mean, in my mind I was like, what could I put here that doesn't belong here, but that I can make somehow look natural in this space? And I think that's a question I ask myself a lot when I'm making art. What can I put here that doesn't belong here, but that somehow is going to make sense to someone? And then, yeah. And then they explain, like, yeah, and every time I finish a painting, I find the explanation at the end. And then I'm like, oh, this is what this painting means. This is what, yeah. And it's a fun surprise. I still look at my paintings, and it's just a trip, because I have the conscious memory of doing it. Like, I know consciously that I sat down and I painted that. And yet when I sit back and look at it when it's done, it's a trip. Like, it's a weird existential moment, or the moment itself is surreal. Like, it just feels crazy that I did that.
I've noticed a lot of artists that I've talked to that do the kind of similar technique of using the subconscious to kind of paint. They seem to feel like the art isn't necessarily made by them, but through them.
Yeah. Yeah, and I used to blow glass a little bit too, and blowing glass taught me this. It's that, and I think it's the same for all art. It's that piece of art already knows, like that piece of material already knows what it's intended to be. That's why, and I learned this through glass blowing, because if I tried to make the glass do something that was outside of that didn't align with what it was meant to be, it wouldn't cooperate. It would crack. It would, like, it just, something wouldn't work out. But if I tried to work with the glass and like almost follow the glass's lead as I was trying to get it to do what I want it to do, it would end up being exactly what it should be. And I find with painting, it's the exact same thing. All of my paintings knew what they were before I created them, and I'm just holding the brush. Like, it really does, it does feel like that. I think I heard, who was it? One of the sculptor famous painters, the one that did the
Michelangelo.
Yeah. And he's like, I saw her in a rock. There's the rock, I could see her inside of it, and all I did was free her. Like, yeah, and that's exactly how it feels. It's like you're you're scratching off a lottery ticket. And like,
Mm-hmm.
like as you're scratching off, it's becoming more and more clear what it is. And then, you know, but nobody could have scratched it but you.
Exactly. That's what I think is my favorite part about art is you can have 20 people do the same subject, but it's always going to have a different expression, different, hopefully. Some people just straight up copy other people, and that's fine. Like you do you, but I think it's really nice to see people express their differences through their art.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I think it's the same with, you know, it took me a while to realize this too when it came to the realm of like therapy and astrology. And, you know, there's only so many things that can be said. Like we're all pretty much repeating things and you know, we have new ideas and stuff like that. But the reason you have millions of people saying the same things is because they're all saying it a tiny bit differently. And everybody's listening for the thing that makes sense to them. And, you know, somebody could go to a therapist and hear the same thing 10 times, and it's not going to click until that 10th one says it in just the right way. You know, like it took me years to learn fractions, even though all of my teachers were explaining the exact same concept. It wasn't until one of them was like, hey, imagine if you had eggs in a nest. The nest is the dominant egg. Like she made it about nature. But, you know, it was just took the one person saying it the right way. And, you know, I think that sometimes we're like, well, why should I bother? That's already been done. Why should I bother? Somebody's already painted something like that. Why should I bother? Somebody's already out there spreading that message. And it's because we all have an incredibly unique way that nobody else can replicate of making the art or saying the thing or giving the message or whatever it is. Somebody out there is waiting to hear it or see it in the exact way that you have to present it.
Yeah.
And that's why we should all bother and say what we got to say and make what we got to make.
So when it comes to art, who inspires you?
Anybody ever like other artists, you mean? Or just,
Yeah.
Oh.
Like your main, like what inspires you to kind of get into art?
I mean, you know, who didn't fall in love with Van Gogh and Starry Night as a kid and was like, well, I mean, I want to do that. Yeah, I don't know if if there's so much a specific artist, or it's literally every time I see art, every artist that I see on Instagram. Like I follow a lot of artists on Instagram, and every single one of them, I'm just like, holy crap, that's incredible. You know, or even the artists who are, you know, just starting out and you watch their progression, like it inspires me when people who, you know, who aren't doing it for the money they're doing, you know, they literally just enjoy it. And maybe their art's not, you know, something that you'll see in a gallery, but you can see that they put something into it and they're proud of it. And that's awesome. Like that inspires me. Like, yeah, anybody that's willing to create anything and put it out for the world to see is inspiration. I think it's beautiful because it's scary. It can be very scary. And as an artist, you know, you put yourself into your paintings. And so like all of my paintings are my little creations and I hold them very dearly. And so, yeah, it can be very nerve-wracking putting it out there. So It's super inspirational seeing anybody do it.
Now, when say you want to get into the creative mood, or you're sitting down to paint, is there any kind of like ritual that you kind of are like it just happens to you every time? It's like I have this set up this way, I have this set up this way, and that helps produce it.
Yeah. Excuse me. I struggle with executive dysfunction, so if I can get myself over here, that it like I'm just like I just sit down, like it's almost like I have to make it mindless and be like, just fill up the cup of water. You're just gonna do it. Just do it. Just fill up the cup of water and walk over there. You don't even have to think about what you're gonna paint. Yeah, just fill up. Like it is that much of a challenge for my executive dysfunction to just get me painting. So no, there's no rituals. In fact, I keep this is my living room. I mean, my living room goes further that way, but like a third of my living room at least is dedicated to my little art space where everything is always ready. So literally all I have to do is fill up a cup of water and open up some paint and I can start painting. Because if I had to put it away and take it out and all that, it would be so many steps involved just to paint. So
Yeah.
there's no,
Give space for excuses not to. It's like, I don't want to have to get that out.
yeah, that sounds like so much work and so many steps. Yeah. ADHD is rough. You have to make everything as few amount of steps as possible to make it startable.
So I noticed you talked about how you have to kind of interpret your paintings after they're done. Have you found a common theme besides, like, as you're saying, the eye and the star, but any kind of like common interpretation that comes from them?
There's definitely a metaphysical theme. There's a theme that we're all made of stardust, essentially. We're all the same thing. And we're just constantly transferring our energy. Our energy is constantly being transferred from, I don't know, one existence to another, from one realm to another, from one space to another. Yeah. So I'm looking over at my painting, a bunch of my paintings hang up on the wall. And I'm like sitting here trying to think. The most recent painting that I did, the larger one, the voyeuristic existence, I think kind of sums up the meaning of that painting, sums up the meaning, I feel like, of a lot of my paintings. And it's that, and what it is, if you're not familiar with it, see if I don't think I have a print of it right now. I have a tiny cutoff print, but this print is, I don't even want to show it, it doesn't do it justice. But it's the one where there's some cliffs and they kind of make this V shape, and then there's and they're dark, and there's a bright orange sunset, and then the sky gets real dark and blue up at the top, and then there's a little kind of cave over to the side, and down back in the cave is a little hole. It's like a little, and there's stars in it, so there's like this little portal in this cave. And then outside of the cave, there's like a little walkway up to where the edge of the cliff would be. And so when I started this painting, it was going to be two people standing there watching the sunset. And they were travelers they were just stopping on their way between worlds, like from this portal, and they were just stopping to watch the sunset on their travels, right? Here's one of the reasons why there's no people in my paintings. I suck at like painting people. Like painting faces in the human form, so difficult. Painting stars and landscapes, super easy. It's the other reason why I paint eyeballs and not faces, because the eyeball by itself, super easy to paint. The face around the eye, super difficult. And so, so in this painting, I painted these two people and it just didn't quite, I don't know, I just couldn't get them right. So I was like, fuck it, they're going to be stars. Everything is stars. And so I kept the outline of the shape of the two people standing there, you know, holding each other, watching the sunset. But then inside of this shape is just this galaxy and these two stars, and there's lots of space gas and stuff. And the premise, before I changed it from people to stars, and after that doesn't change, the premise is still that all existence is just, we're existing to observe existence. Like stars watch us, we watch stars. Like we the whole point of existence was that creation could be experienced, and part of our experience is observing everything around us, and everything around us is in the same position we are, which is just existing and observing. And so we're all, yeah, just in this voyeuristic existence.
I love that. That aligns a lot with my own, what's the word? Musings about metaphysics. So when it comes to metaphysics, how did you get into kind of the more kind of pantheistic kind of view, where like everything kind of is observing itself? How did you get into that?
I don't feel like I got into it. I feel like I was born this way and life has just continuously reaffirmed it. Like this, I was just, this understanding has just always been there. And I've just, yeah, after 38, almost 39 years, just enough stuff is just absolutely reaffirmed this constantly, you know? And so, yeah. And psychedelics, that is a
Yeah,
big
same.
reaffirming part of it. But
Definitely. So, is there any like experience that really kind of opened your eyes to like more revelations of what, what's behind the veil?
um, I mean, I'm sure there's two instances that stick out, and they're both really like intense, big instances. And I preface by saying that death isn't real anyway, right? It's just a transference of energy. But 7 years ago, on the solstice in 2015, uh, my partner passed away. It was very tragic and very sad, and won't go into it any more than that. But it was a very, very life altering moment. It was a clear black and white of my two lives. There was me before that, and then there's been me after that. And so I think that almost created like a snap, like something broke in me. Um, and it took a couple years. And then in 2018, in 2018, I didn't give up all of my worldly possessions, but most of them. And I even gave up my camper at one. Like I got down to where I just had a camper, and I was traveling around and stuff, um, and I ended up in California, down in Mendocino, and then went to San Francisco. And um, I won't go into how I had this in my possession. That's irrelevant. But in my possession, I had some unlabeled bags of various psychedelics, and they weren't unlabeled is the key to the story, right? And it's one of those things where I think my subconscious knew exactly what it was doing, and I think my conscious mind was a little bit more naive, but my subconscious, looking back, I think knew exactly what we were doing. So one of these bags was just some white powder, and I was like, oh, I bet this is ketamine. This will be fun. And it wasn't. It was it was it was raw LSD, crystal. And so I snorted and ate, because I licked my, it was, anyway, I snorted, ate about a quarter gram of,
Holy shit.
and it fixed what had been broken. At least it started it started the fixing process. You know, after Nathan died, it was really, really hard. And it really fucked me up. And doing that much LSD at one time, it was beautiful. Okay, so first of all, as soon as I realized what had happened, because when you take that much LSD in that pure form right away, it's not like a 30, 40 minute like buildup. It is like a 30-second, if you're like, maybe, I don't even want to say 30 seconds. It was probably 15 or so. And instantly I'm like, oh, it's not ketamine. This is not ketamine. I looked at my friend and I was like, get ready. I'm really sorry. It's going to be fine. Let's go back to our friend at the car who didn't do it. And we explained to him what happened. Then we went to the park. We went to San Francisco Park. But I called a dear, dear friend of mine. And I said, hey, I think I put on some pants that are too big for me this time. And he goes, what do you mean? And I was like, that baggie that said #1, that wasn't ketamine, was it? He goes, oh God, no. It's like, what did you do? And I'm like, most of the bag. And he's like, oh. I was like, yeah, I'm about to lose the ability to hold this conversation, so I need you to tell me really quickly what I should do. And he was like, oh, this is the best thing you can ever tell anybody who's accidentally taken acid. And it wasn't my first time taking acid, but, you know, that much for sure. And he goes, well, you are about to experience one of the most beautiful things any human can ever experience. He's like, there is such a small few of us who have been where you're about to go. He's like, but I promise. He's like, where are you? I'm like, it's San Francisco. He's like, perfect. But are you with friends? Are you with safe people? And I'm like, yes. One of them is sober. And he's like, perfect. Have him take you to the park. Enjoy your day. It's going to be phenomenal. And all of a sudden I was like, this is a gift. And I had the most fabulous day in the park. We did stop at Safeway and get a bunch of chewable B12s because that'll help bring it down a little bit, because that was a lot and I didn't want to try not to be high for days. It was still, you know, it was a good 24 hours, but yeah, it was just an incredible day in the park. It was, I wish I could remember more of it. I just remember everything being so bright and so, yeah. There was at one point when I found this tree and it was perfect for like just sitting in, like this tree was just, she was perfect. She was made to be lounged in. That's what she wanted. And I got up in this tree and I lounged, and there was this kid, like group of kids walking by with their mom, and like younger kids, like 3, 4, 5. And they were all little girls and they were just giggling. Oh my gosh. And it took everything. I had to remind myself, I'm like, you're high, don't talk to kids. You're high, don't talk to kids. You're high, don't talk to kids. Because everything in me wanted to be like, oh, hey, like, let's play. And I couldn't. I had to like, stay in the tree, stay in the tree. And so, yeah. And the other significant thing that happened that day during that trip was that there was only one point when I sat down for a second and I closed my eyes because, you know, mine was slightly overwhelming. And I closed my eyes and I just started seeing all of this swirling color and tie-dye, and it was just swirling and swirling and swirling and swirling and swirling. And then the color started to fade, and then it was shades of gray, swirling and swirling, and I was going further and further, and then the swirling stopped, and it felt like the thought that I had was like, because it was like I was just sitting in like this gray space, and I was like, oh, this is it. You've gotten to the bottom of your, this is it. This is the center of your mind. This is the center of your depression. This is the center of all your, it's just gray matter. That's it. This is as far as it goes. This is, oh, well, this isn't fun. I'm going to go back out there. And it started swirling again, and the color started swirling back in, and it came back, and then I opened my eyes and I was back. And it was just I don't even know how it fixed me. I'm not sure how that moment did, but somehow it worked. And like, I wasn't instantly like a different, better human being. Like, I wasn't perfect or anything, but I had somehow released or seen something for what it really was and was no longer trapped by it, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, it was, everything started getting better from then. Yeah.
That's why I love the power of psychedelics, because in my own experiences, I've noticed that it really is like active dreaming, to where your subconscious just all of a sudden is like, okay, filters off. Here's all the symbols and everything that, you know, we've been trying to tell you this entire time, and it just throws you all these weird images. But while you're in the trip, you're able to decipher these things and like, oh, this is what it means. Once you're out of the trip, it's kind of like, huh, what? No, but while you're in it, you can feel like, oh yes, this means this. This is my, like as you're saying, this gray matter, and this is my depression. I don't want this. I'm just going to leave it. And so then it gives your mind a narrative to work through its problems, which is what I think is really important, because we run off narratives. We think in narratives most of the time. We have stories that have been passed down for thousands of years. And there's these symbols that present themselves to us because it's beyond our comprehension without the symbol, you know?
Yeah.
Because everything that we know in our head is something we've seen in the outside world, and then it just kind of mutates in our brain. So our brain has to figure out a way to take these concepts that aren't in the real world and be like, so how am I supposed to tell the higher consciousness this is what's going on? Oh, okay. I'll put the symbol of someone laughing at you, but it's yourself looking at yourself in a mirror. Mm-hmm. This is supposed to be telling yourself, don't take yourself too seriously, right. Or just random shit like that. And I think it's really valuable for especially artists, is as long as you do it safely and hopefully with good people.
Right.
No prior medical conditions. Yes, not on accident. Been there.
Results may vary.
Yes.
Not
highly.
Try that unsupervised.
Yeah, and especially now that it's becoming more studied and clinically tested, I think it would be a great avenue for artists to kind of release their creativity, and as like what happened with you, you can heal yourself. It won't heal everything for you. You have to do the work, but it's like giving you the key to open the door. It's like okay, now you can go through it. Before you were locked in, here's your key.
Yeah,
but you have to step through it.
It's empowering to. So now you're getting back into the realm of hypnotherapy too. It's just making me want to talk about that. So, yeah, when you, it's like it empowers. Like one of the most profound things a therapist ever told me, and it's going to seem real simple and real like duh, is that our minds, our conscious minds, our brain, right? Our brain, not our conscious mind. Our brain is just a tool.
Yeah.
That's it. Our brain does not operate us. Our brain operates our body. Our mind, our subconscious, that it operates our brain. But we have a lot more power over ourselves than we have been conditioned to believe, than we've been taught to believe. The subconscious is super powerful. And when I was learning about it, the illustration that I was given, draw it for you real quick. So, can you kind of see? So see like a big oval, yep. Right? You know this line? Mm-hmm. This little tiny part up here is your conscious. This is your subconscious. And realistically, this line wouldn't even exist around the subconscious because we don't actually know where it begins or ends. Is it collective? Is it not collective? Is it tied to our soul through all of these lives? Like we don't know. What we do know is that it operates by a different set of rules than the conscious mind does. The reason we have a conscious mind, which by the way, in hypnotherapy, when somebody's in a hypnosis state, they're in the theta state, which is the state you're in between awake and sleep, right? So right as you're waking up, you're in the theta state, and right as you're falling asleep, before you're asleep, you're in the theta state. Children are in a constant theta state until they're about 6 or 7 years old.
Interesting.
So children don't. Okay, so our conscious mind is the thing that helps us determine past, present, and future, helps us determine fact versus fiction, helps us determine, it's our critical mind. It's the thing that allows us to decipher all of the things and information being presented to us at any given moment, right? Whether it's our environment or somebody talking or whatever. Excuse me. And so without the conscious mind, the subconscious mind doesn't understand time. It doesn't understand past, present, or future. That's why triggers exist. That's why even though something happens to you in the past, you still get like panic if something even remotely close happens to it now. Because even though your conscious mind is very aware that this is a different situation and that's not happening again, your subconscious mind 100% thinks that is happening again because it's always happening. The subconscious mind, there's no concept of time to it. So every moment that has ever happened or that you've ever imagined happening is always happening at the same time. That's why it's so important to do inner child like regressions in hypnotherapy, because in that, what you do is you literally go to that memory and you change it. You say, well, you didn't fall in the river that day and almost drown, and and that never you essentially rewrite the entire memory. And so even though your conscious mind still knows that that horrible day happened and you fell in the river and now you're scared of rivers, your subconscious mind accepts this rewrite as that just happened, that's real, because you're feeling it. As long as if your body is having a physical response to the emotions that you're feeling or the thoughts that you're having, then that means your subconscious thinks that you are there right now. That's real to your subconscious. And so as soon as you like rescue the inner child from that moment and take it to a safe place, it's not sitting there just looping in that memory constantly in your subconscious going, save me, save me, save me, save me, right? And so it's incredible that our subconscious mind, like, yeah, I forgot the original question because I went on my tangent, but yeah, it's a fascinating space and it's super powerful. And once you understand the rules of the subconscious, you can, instead of trying to fight against it and just trying to like consciously be like, change, 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 you just go in there and actually say, hey, what do you need? Oh, you need to feel safe. Okay, well, let's make you feel safe. And then your subconscious isn't constantly trying to fight for safety or work from a place of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, as someone that is a hypnotherapist, I have a couple questions because like I have my own weird theories. What do you think of the idea of kind of unconscious learning, to where you just kind of, I used to do this at Amazon because there was just nothing to do all day except for work, and every once in a while a manager would come up to me, so I just had like one earbud in and I would listen to books passively. Mm-hmm. Does that have any kind of effect to help learn?
Yeah, so your subconscious is always on. The reason why hypnosis during sleep works is because even though during sleep your conscious mind shuts down and it's resting, your subconscious never stops. It is always on. It is always listening. Is always hearing everything. And so it absolutely, there's, yeah, you can absolutely unlearn stuff or relearn stuff, and just by listening to things like that. For the things like childhood regressions, like that's just really specific. Like, mm-hmm. you can do some really, so when you're just listening to stuff in your sleep, like you can relearn. It's like you can put new information in that way, but you're not necessarily going to take out or change the old information. You're just adding information, and that new information might outweigh some of this old information, and that's like it's doable, but it would be a faster route to do both almost. Okay. Like it would be a faster route to, one, go in, do regressions, which, I mean, self-hypnosis is a thing.
Yeah, I've tried it a few times.
Yeah.
It works really well.
Yeah, and hypnosis, and I think there's a lot of misconception about hypnosis. It's not stage hypnosis. It's not go to sleep, act like a chicken.
Yeah.
It very much, we all hypnotize ourselves every day. Anytime you're in the car and you're on autopilot and you go from one destination to another destination, you've driven there 1,000 times and you're thinking about something else, like you're self-hypnotizing. Anytime you watch TV and you are so engrossed in what you're watching that you like feel what they're feeling, like you're hypnotized. When you scroll on your phone, like we all self-hypnotize all the time. And really, like any guided meditation is self-hypnosis. So yeah, it's a thing.
Do you think that maybe like hypnosis and self-hypnosis is just kind of a natural part of the human life that we've just had for years and it just gone unrecognized? Because like, when you're sitting by a campfire and you're staring into it, that's all we did for thousands of years after the invention of fire. It's like, what else are you gonna do? You're gonna stare at the stars? Yeah. At night, you're gonna stare at the fire? That's kind of all you got. You can tell some stories, but most of the time, it's kind of like these more one-point focused things.
I think that a lot of cultures outside of American culture, I think a lot of cultures, and then a lot of past cultures, especially, Native Americans who obviously existed here before we did, you'll find a lot of work with the subconscious. They honored it a lot, and they worked with it a lot, and they just didn't call it they just didn't call it the subconscious, you know. But it's, I think that like most things, when American society gets a hold of it, it gets misconstrued.
Commercialized.
Yeah, it gets commercialized, and I mean, don't get me wrong, like, I charge money for hypnotherapy, you know what I mean? Like, we all have bills to pay. But it's not just that, yeah, it gets commercialized, it gets whitewashed. Like, it gets washed of all of its origins and where it came from. But like, people have been using hypnotherapy, guided meditation is probably a better term for it, for thousands of years though. And it's like anything else. Like, psychedelics were put on this earth, you know, and we have them, and some of us use them to just have a good time and escape. Some of us use them for therapeutic purposes. Not saying either one is wrong, or either one is better than the other, but they're, you know, just choices. And hypnotherapy is one of those things. Like, hypnosis can be used to simply dissociate while you're on your phone or watching TV, and you know, you can use hypnosis to just escape and dissociate, but you can use it with intention and really change and evolve yourself, and for the better. So it's like anything else you put in a human's hands. It's how they use it. But just like psychedelics, we've had it for thousands of years at our disposal.
So as a hypnotherapist, do you do any divings into lucid dreaming or any work with that?
I would love to. I just haven't had anybody want to work on that yet, or work with their dreams yet. The majority of people are, the world hurts right now. Like, it's just, people are in a lot of pain, and they're in pain that they've been carrying around since childhood. Sorry, hold on. Since childhood, and come here. Sorry, it's mailman time. And so I think a lot of people are so hurt. That's just the first layer that needs to be dealt with. A lot of times. I would like to do a lot more work with dreams though, and past lives specifically too, because past lives fascinate me. Because I can look on somebody's birth chart too and pull up past life information, and I'm really interested in combining astrology with hypnotherapy, so that way I can give somebody an even more individualized, you know, because if I see your chart, then I automatically know way more information going in, you know, that it might take you months to talk about in regular therapy and get to all those things, whereas I can go, oh, this person values security, or, you know, this is how this person feels secure, this is how this person moves in action, this is you know, I can look at the nodes of the moon and the different houses and be like, oh, this is what this person brought into this life, and this is where they could leave their comfort zone and find more potential. And so it's a really awesome thing to have those two combined. I also would like to combine psychedelics and hypnotherapy, because I think that given like ketamine or mushrooms or something like that, I think DMT would be a little much.
It can be. You can slow it down a little bit with ketamine.
Yeah.
But it is pretty fast and in your face.
Right, yeah. Whereas ketamine is just a dissociate, and it kind of, it'll help move the conscious out of the way, or it lowers the critical factor of the consciousness a little bit.
Yeah.
And then mushrooms, I think, would be good for the same reason. I think I could do it with DMT, somebody with DMT, but it would have to be somebody who was very experienced with DMT and was, yeah. But it fascinates me, and I'd really like to go down those avenues of trying that.
Yeah, because there are amazing ancient tools that we've had for thousands of years to be able to not only like get, you know, metaphysical and spiritual data, but also rewrite our own programs.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's many things that I've had that I saw while, you know, having experiences and be like, oh, this is why I have this insecurity.
Mm-hmm. This
is why this triggers me. And that's what a lot of bad trips come from that. And actually those are some of the best, because those are the ones that reveal to you the things that you've needed to know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, oh, this scary monster is, or this weird face that's appearing. As long as you just don't freak out, you'll see a lot of weird stuff, but just recognize it for what it is and then just kind of let it pass, and it does its own thing. But then you can realize, it's because you know, this happened in my childhood. My family was neglecting me at this point, and something like that, and so I feel an abandonment issue, or just random things like that that can really be unlocked with these tools. And I find that I love your idea of putting hypnotherapy and psychedelics together, because I think that's where the real potential is to unlock the unconscious, the subconscious, and the conscious mind all together.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, that's what, you know, we have Americanized terms and modern terms like hypnotherapy and psychedelics, but really what we're talking about doing is no different than when, you know, a medicine man or woman would give somebody these psychedelics and then stay with them and guide them through their journey and things like that. It's essentially very similar.
Yeah, we even had the same thing at the Temple of Eleusis.
Mm-hmm.
Where even like Plato and Aristotle, all these great thinkers, they went there and they drank the kykeon, which was an ergot infused beer,
mm-hmm.
and they had psychedelic metaphysical experiences, and they had priests and people there to guide them through it. So it wasn't just like, here, take this, go sit over there for a little bit. It was a guided experience to let people understand what was happening.
Right.
Because it's a lot at once.
It is, and without intention, you're just gonna get high. Which I mean is cool.
Exactly.
Like it's nothing like we've all.
It can be fun. It can be fun.
Yeah,
but,
I've accidentally learned some amazing things while just trying to, you know, get high on psychedelics, and you know, but there's definitely some things I won't do again.
Yeah.
Like I did do DMT not very long ago. And I thought, like, it seems so silly now. It's pretty ballsy, I guess. But I was like, okay, I set my intention. I was like, I sat there, I gave the DMT gratitude, and I set my intention. And my intention was, I want to face my shadow. Which is not, right? Like, why? Why? Not like why, but why? It seems.
Yeah, that's intense, man. That's an intense thing to go through.
Yeah, like how naive am I? And so, and this is, you know, well after the whole acid thing that I did. You know, I should have known better than this, but so yeah, and that was probably, and I was by myself too. I wasn't with anybody. I was alone in my room, which was also another mild mistake. And it was one of the, I don't want to say it was one of the worst trips I ever had, because looking like hindsight, it was important that I did it, but it was the most uncomfortable experience I've ever had on a psychedelic. And yeah, it was super rough. I just remember at one moment like saying out loud, like, I just had a question. I just had a question. I just need a guide. And it was almost like I was in this super busy like circus where like everybody was moving really, really fast, but I couldn't get anybody to just answer my questions. And then, and I saw this like weird, dark carnival looking house thing. And I was like, oh, that's right. That's what I came here to do. And so I went over to the house and I went inside, and as soon as I went in that house, I was completely surrounded on literally all sides other than this where I was standing, where my feet were, completely surrounded in every direction by just blades, knives, saws, like just coming at me from all directions. And I was like, oh, that's right. This is what, like, why did I do this? Well, I'm here now. And I was like, okay, I just need light. That's all I need. I just need light. And I tried to think of light, and I couldn't. And this whole time I've got my eyes closed, because I intentionally was like hypnotherapy about, like, I'm going to close my eyes and into my mind about this, and I couldn't find. It was too nice. And so in my room, I've got like twinkly lights around. And so I opened my eyes and I saw the twinkly lights, and I kept trying to, it's going to sound dumb, I kept trying to pull the light into my, like, I'd look at it and be like, and like try and close my eyes and bring the light with me. And it just wasn't working. And then finally I was like, okay, this is a lot. And so I opened my eyes, and then I was just regular DMT high, like, and it was a lot. And it was still just a trip. And it's like 2 a.m. So, you know, it's not a lot of people I'm going to call. And the one person I did try to call didn't answer. And I was like, that's right. You got like 5 more minutes. It'll be fine. And yeah, that was another one of those trips where I was like, okay, that was excruciating, but now I know. Yeah. And I feel better knowing. And it, yeah, it's a lot. Yeah, I think I feel a lot more understanding of the, you know, whole accept your shadow thing that they talk about. You know, you can't get rid of it. It is a part of you. And even in hypnotherapy, you know, when you do parts therapy with somebody, and, you know, a part of them is a negative part or something, and they're not allowed to just, you can't send away one of your parts. Every part of you is a part of you, and it's a part of you for a reason, and it has a need. And if it's acting out or in an aggressive, negative way, then it's probably because it's not getting its need met. Mm-hmm. Usually that need goes back to some sort of inner child need, or the need to feel safe, or the need to feel heard, or the need to feel seen. So, yeah. I don't recommend telling the DMT, though, that you want to face your shadow, because the DMT will. Yeah. It'll show you.
Yeah.
And it's
yeah. I will say, though, for one thing that does help, I've noticed, is like if you're starting to kind of feel a little like freakish out, like on that intense of a trip, like a deep breath, like upper inner chest, and then then push it out, and that really, like, that's that flow of oxygen just like snaps things into a whole different visualization, at least in my experience.
It's not just you. Breathing is a super grounding thing. It's something I've always done in life. When I, like, even when I was little, before I knew that was what I was doing, I just instinctively, and I think it is instinctive for us to try and calm ourselves with breathing. And even in hypnotherapy, you know, when I'm giving an induction, this is one of the first things I tell somebody is, the first thing I tell somebody is, close your eyes and just take a moment to focus on your breathing, how natural it is. And that is how you start hypnotherapy. As soon as your brain focuses on its own breathing, it triggers the relaxation in your body and your mind. So yeah, you're doing it right.
Thank you. How much time do we have left? Okay, we only got a couple more minutes, so I wanted to make sure that you get out all your information. How do people find you?
So my website is iperceive, which I like EYE-perceive.com. On there you can find the gallery and the shop for all my art. The hypnotherapy stuff is on there, and you can order a session. I do free 20-minute consultations for hypnotherapy. So yeah, anything past life, inner child, your panic attacks, just anything, any issue that you have in your mind, the solution is also in your mind, and it's just a matter of you finding it and me helping you find that. And then right now, I do have some of my art up at the Wagon Wheel Bar and Grill Event Center up in Suncrest. It's a really cute little place up there. And then you can find my stickers and some prints and the last couple t-shirts I have of that design at Let's Talk Nails down on the corner of Spokane and Howard. They just did a First Friday show. And I'm not used to plugs. I think that's pretty much it.
And it's also at I Perceive on Instagram as well, because I'm going to be sharing this to YouTube. I'll I'll put all the links and everything in the YouTube description, but this is just good for people that are just listening.
Perfect. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Well, thank you for coming on, Stevie. It was fascinating talking with you. I love your perspective. It's great.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. This was super fun.
And believe me, we'll be talking a lot more about the hypnotherapy and astrology stuff off the show, because I have a lot more questions, but not enough time here.
Well, happy to answer them. Anybody has any questions, please message me anytime. I love talking about this.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye.
Goodbye.